Good morning, everyone. I'm Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn. I'm going to be chairing this morning's meeting of the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Board meeting. Mr. Ells is currently unavailable. Today is Friday, May 3rd, 2024. It is approximately 9 a.m. I want to note that real-time access to the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Board is available using the properly posted Zoom link and telephone number meeting ID for this number. I also want to note a recording notice. Please note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, the chair must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. We have a robust public participation this morning, so please raise your hand and let me know as chair if you are recording today's meeting. All right, seeing none, it is being recorded by the town on Zoom. So I will start by having a roll call to order. Let's see, board members, Wendy Northcross,
Present.
Mark Milne,
Present.
Laura Schufelt,
Present.
Andy Clyburn, present, and as noted, Mr. Ells is not with us this morning. We will start this morning with public comment. Please bear with me. We do have a number of folks with us, so I will do my best. If you could just raise your hand either like this or using the tool, I will make the rounds and give everyone the opportunity to speak. Who would like to start this morning? Any members of the public like to provide comment this morning? Or do we have many spectators?
Betty's hand up.
Betty? Oh, Councilor Ledke, please.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll start off. Thank you for the opportunity. This was a discussion point at the town council meeting. We had some public comment on that, which I always welcome, and it's good to now be in front of the board members of the trust. Some of the things that concern me, I'm here to speak about the WIN proposal. First, let me say WIN has every opportunity to apply for these funds. However, I believe that these funds could be better spent elsewhere. And let me explain some of my rationale in that. I think Jillian distributed a financial analysis that was completed by one of our residents, and I hope all of you have that in hand and you've been able to take a look at that. I'm not going to address that. I'm going to talk more about maybe some of the intangibles of this. We've done the form-based zoning on Main Street, and I've spoken before that I have a little bit of a problem with this. I find it problematic that we basically put on a historic district the need to demolish and start from new, which sets up a juxtaposition right from the start when these projects come forward. So that makes it difficult. And I was the liaison to the Historic Main Street committee when this proposal came. It came before us or before the board. I was the liaison 3 times. And while they did make some gestures to the public comment, I don't think they did enough. I think they could have done a lot more. And we've all been told over and over that 4 stories is required so that the developer can develop economically and provide the affordability component we need. So WIN's taken full advantage of that. They've gone to the 4 stories. They've demolished everything there, and they're starting from scratch. So they've taken full advantage of that for the economic aspects of their design, and I commend them for that. And that was their decision to make. And they could have made more gestures, I think, to the streetscape and to the historic nature. I still say, and I said last night, that this building could land anywhere and be comfortable anywhere. I don't see that it really speaks to the vernacular of Main Street. And for that, I do give them some negative points. But they made their decisions. And the thought that they're now coming forward and asking for our CPC money, and for those who aren't aware, because I was on the council then, some of our new councilors were not. In October, we voted to send some of our CPA money over to the Affordable Housing Trust, because CPA money can be used for affordable housing. And I did that, with a trust that the trust would expend these funds appropriately. And when I think of expenditures, I don't think of giving it to a national developer who has basically already taken advantage of our form-based zoning to get the affordability they said they needed. I would like to spend it more on local projects. I think that Jake Dewey has been given some money, and I've driven by his project. It looks beautiful. He's renovated a building in the front. He's removed everything from the back and is going to build in the back there. And I like that. That's local. It speaks to the heart. There's something special about CPA funds that come from our taxpayers. Our taxpayers voted to do this 3% above their property taxes. And it has a special attachment to me. And I think back to the Veterans Breakfast that was sponsored by the Massachusetts Military Support Foundation that I attended this past fall. And in the back, they had a drawing put up and they invited people to come and look at it. I spent quite a bit of time with the individual. They have a proposal on South Street to work with veterans, and the individual is doing some pro bono work to try to work on that design. And they went to exhaustive detail to look at what veterans need and some of the aspects of their lives that require certain things to be done. And not to get too much in the detail, but I love the detail they did get into to address some of our more vulnerable population and what they do need in housing solutions. And I would much rather see that done. You do have criteria, you have the financial analysis, but when you look at it from maybe some of these other aspects of the community, our citizens, and some of the issues involved in Main Street, I think there could be a better use for these funds. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. All right, who would like to speak next from public comment?
I have a hand up from Eric Schwab.
Hello, Mr. Schwab, please.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. When I think about CPC funds, I think about the old Hyannis Trust Bank building that Wynn would like to demolish. Now, if we're trying to preserve our community, we're trying to preserve the look on Main Street, and we're using our money to make that investment, why would we fund Wynn Development? Wynn Development has come into town, wants to just raise an entire corner, lose the history, lose the connection with the past. Why would we fund that? So I would rather this money be used to buy that old trust company building from Wynn and restore it as a welcome center or something meaningful for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab. Councilor Bloom.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to see this money go to a smaller project where it would have a better impact. And I'd like to ask a question too about the money. I'm not familiar really with the funds. Is this money replenished once it's gone, or is, for example, the 2 million, once this 2 million is doled out, is that gone forever in the fund?
Just as a point of order, Counselor, it's public comment, so I'm not going to entertain getting back and forth with question and answer, but for this particular point, I'll make an exception. Clearly, we have gone to CPC numerous times, and we will continue to do so. It is not a fixed amount that when it's all spent, it's gone.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's what I needed to know.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. I have a hand raised for Matthew. I apologize, I don't know your name, Matthew. If you could identify yourself and provide comment. Oh, now I see. Until you smiled, I didn't recognize you, sir. This is a council.
That's okay. I apologize. I'm in the passenger seat of I'm on my way to Penn State for Connor's graduation. So, but I did want to call in, and I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I don't get to sign in all too often, and but I just want to say thank you for your service to our community. We have a lot of great members of the on this Housing Trust Committee. First and foremost, I want to thank the Wynn Company for their willingness to partner with us and invest in a project to bring some much needed affordable housing to downtown Hyannis, mixed use, mixed levels of income, which is shown to be a very effective way of building housing and creating community. And they have a great reputation to doing so. But I will say that, looking at the numbers, looking at the availability of funds from different levels, I do trust, and I ask the committee to really do your due diligence to make sure that this is a proper use of this money. I do take it seriously to echo some of the other comments in regards to the use of our taxpayer dollars and our CPC funds. But again, I'm excited about the project. I think that they really tried to go above and beyond to try to respond to public concern. And again, I just am grateful for this process and the members of this committee that are taking the time to do the due diligence on the town's behalf. So thank you for your time. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, I see, is it Natalie has her hand raised? Natalie? Natalie, if you're with us, if you want to unmute and provide your comment, that would be wonderful. Going twice?
Nope,
All right.
coming, yep, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Please.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. I just wanted to make a comment about their range of incomes that they listed on their submission papers for this grant. They talked about affordable units for 30 to 60% of those earners on the AMI for 77 total units. And then they talked about middle income, 100 to 120% of the AMI. Well, that's really more of market than it is affordable. And they've completely cut out the 61% to 100% group. And yet the state of Massachusetts says low-income households are eligible if they earn no more than 80%. So 80% should be an allowed income bracket in their submission for low income units. So why they left this out, I don't know, but it just jumped out at me, and I felt it really wasn't apparently wasn't done very well to organize the income range. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Could you please state your full name as well? I didn't quite catch it.
Yes, Natalie Pittenger.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your comment. We do appreciate you attending.
Okay.
Do we have any others in the public that would like to speak this morning? Hector, please identify your full name and provide comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I'm Hector Gunther. I'm a resident of Barnstable. And I understand that there's a lot of controversy about the building and the size and where it's being placed. And I don't really have enough information to take a position on that. But as a financial analyst, I took a look at some of the numbers for this project, and I have several questions for when Adam Stein and whoever else from the developer present. There's a question that I have on the sources and uses. The numbers, I think it's on page 5 of their proposal. They're very summary numbers, and it's hard to know the detail of where the various subsidies are coming from. So I would appreciate more detail from the company. If they could expand the sources and uses between the Low-Income Housing Trust and Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and the tax credits, the quantity of tax credits that they expect. I'm also curious to know what what stage they're at in terms of applying for these subsidies and what level of confidence they have that they'll receive them. I also would point out in the sources and uses that the uses figure of 79.9 million exceeds the sources figure by $3.2 million. So they omitted one line in the sources document. So I would ask that they correct the sources and uses. And then finally, I've emailed Mr. Stein and his colleague, Remy Schneider, to ask for a link that gives us access to their audited financial statements. That's on page 105 of the document. The link that's in the public version, it's a link to a Dropbox, and it doesn't work. And I've emailed Stein and Schneider 3 times and have gotten no response. So I would appreciate a response to that so we can look more closely at the company's audited financials. Not that we'll learn a lot because it's a morass of partnerships, but essentially I'm just more interested in the financial side, and I think there's not very much detail here. And as everybody has noticed, 83.31% of the total sources are subsidies or tax credits, and 1.3% of the sources, or 1.38% of the sources, are developer equity. And again, I'm not a housing specialist, but that strikes me as very low. They don't have a lot of their own skin in this game for a project like this. So those are my comments, and I would appreciate response from the developer when we get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance and comment. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak this morning? All right, I am not seeing anyone on my screen as I scroll through a few screens here. Elizabeth, do you see anyone that I'm missing?
I do not, sir.
Okay, excellent. With that, I will close public comment. And before we jump into the topics for discussion at today's meeting, I do want to note that we did get approximately 14 emails sent to the trustees. I want to verify that all of our board members did in fact receive the 14 emails. I see everyone nodding. Okay, excellent.
Yes.
And I also wanted to note, because we have so many folks with us this morning, those that are in support of the trust. Elizabeth Jenkins, Planning Development Director, is here. Jillian Douglas, our trust administrator. Ellen's here, as always, to take minutes. And who else do we have with us? Karen Dover and our attorney, Bob Gavin. So thank you all for joining us this morning. With that, I'll jump into topic number 1 for discussion. Development activity application, initial presentation by the Wind Company's Harbor View, 307 Main Street, Hyannis. Wind Companies is requesting $2 million in support of the Harbor View project, a new ground-up construction of 120 units and a 96,829 square foot structure, replacing a currently vacant building at 307 Main Street in Hyannis. The development program includes approximately 120 units of mixed income housing for individuals and households earning a range of incomes from affordable units, which are 30 to 60% of area median income, middle income units, 100 to 120% area median income, and market rate units. A minimum of 12 units are required by local ordinance to be permanently deed restricted affordable households at 65% of our area mean income. This project seeks to protect the affordability of additional units in return for trust funding. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jillian or Elizabeth to guide us with the proponent to have the overview of the ask.
I wasn't really going to guide. I was going to keep it brief. I wanted us to delve right into the presentation, but if anybody had questions in advance, I'm happy to try to answer.
I'm ready. I think all the other board members are ready. Let's dive into it.
Good.
Great. Mr. Clyburn, if I could just kick things off then for Wynn. I thank you and thank the trust board for being with us today. And I very much appreciate all of the public comments and welcome the public participation. This is, I think, one of the largest turnouts I've ever seen, for a trust meeting. And I think it's important because I think it can be, an experience that's educational for the folks that are here. Certainly from some of the comments, I think, it's clear that the financing that goes behind, the construction and development of affordable and workforce housing is something that's probably not folks aren't as familiar with. This is not like constructing a home. The costs of doing this, I think, aren't appreciated, but are very common. Right. So what you're seeing tonight, or this morning, and what you're going to hear from Wynn is very much reflective of the state of developing affordable housing in the Commonwealth. It's one of the greatest challenges, and it's one of the things that's put us in this large deficit, in Barnstable, on Cape Cod, and throughout the Commonwealth, are the challenges that go into this. But it is a combination of things that will allow us to get out, and that does start, with zoning that allows for this. And I heard some mention, I forget who it was, that this was a project that could go anywhere. In fact, it can't go anywhere. It starts with where our infrastructure is, and where the zoning is in place to facilitate it. And I think that's an important part for this project. The project also was fully vetted and approved by Hyannis Historic. I heard mention of some of the folks, maybe it was Councilor Ludke, that had hoped it had turned out otherwise. But this was fully compliant and was approved by Hyannis Historic and is fully compliant with zoning. The next important piece here is the role of this trust. And it's, this is very much also a local project. I think I heard someone say they preferred a more local project. This is providing housing on Main Street, Hyannis. And the folks that are going to be living there are the folks that we know. They're the folks that we see every day, the folks that are housing challenged right now. So this trust is in place to serve the local housing need. And this is a project that is absolutely going to be serving that local need. So again, I welcome the involvement and the participation of everyone who's here. I think this will be educational. I hope this can serve as a precedent for supporting similar projects going forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Adam Stein from the Wynn Companies and Brendan Julian to step through the presentation.
Thanks, Rob. Brendan, are you able to pull up the slide? Awesome. Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Stein. I'm with Wynn Development. Thanks for your time this morning and working with us to this point. So I'll do a quick overview of Wynn Companies, who we are. I'll do it quickly because I assume you've seen some of the information today, and then get into the project a little bit. So the team, as you probably heard in the past, has not changed. Wynn Companies is the developer and owner. Icon Architecture is our design firm. Beals and Thomas is our civil engineering firm. Stantec is also doing some landscape design. And then Rob is with Smolik and Vaughn, our local attorney. Next slide, please. So Wynn Development, and I think you've heard a little bit about us in the past, and there's a lot of words in this slide, but I'll paraphrase and I'll point to what I think is important about Wynn Companies. Wynn Companies has been involved in affordable and mixed income housing for 52 years. It's our core business. It's what we've done historically and what we will continue to do moving forward. We have a strong development presence in Massachusetts. That's where the core business is. That's where the company started. That's where our roots are. I think what's also important about Wynn Companies is that we're long-term owners. We're not merchant builders where we go in and buy a piece of property and put the financing together and build it and lease it and sell it. We own assets, communities, housing long-term. And a lot of the properties that Wynn developed even 50 years ago, we still have management roles in and ownership roles in. So I think it's a testament to our commitment to not just affordable housing, but our commitment to the communities that we work in and the state and the financing that's provided for those resources. So I think that's nice for a community to work with a developer that also thinks like an owner in terms of what is the building going to not just look like, but how does it function for a long period of time? Details like how does the trash work? How does the building secured and provide safe access? The materials that we put in terms of HVAC and finishes, because we need and want those things to last over a long period of time because we're the ultimate owner. What this also doesn't say is that we've never missed a mortgage payment in that 52 years. We've always had great relationships with state agencies and lenders. And during the pandemic, which I think is important, we were at the forefront of the eviction moratorium and promoting that. And I think you want and need strong developers to work in your communities that have the ability to stand up for the residents and resident protection and provide those services and not just build buildings. So I think, to me, that's who WIN is and that's what we do. I work for the development company. Brendan and I, who are on the call today, work with the development team. And then Brendan, if you hit the next slide, we also have a management company. So all of the communities that WIN develops and owns, we manage internally. So we have our own, property managers at the property. We have our own maintenance teams. So we're available for not just managing the day-to-day, but any time of emergency. And I think that's helpful in terms of leveraging resources between properties, making sure we operate efficiently. And I think it gives the board the ability to say, hey, how's WIN doing in X city or Y city? And, take a tour of the property, see how it operates, get feedback from others, and get a sense and feel of the commitment that WIN has provided over the years. We have a management team, we have a connected communities team, we have a compliance team, we have a financial accounting team, we have a design and a sustainability team that helps us with long-term energy criteria and requirements. So I think within the world of WIN, you have a lot of resources that we can bring to the table to really not just develop a building, like I say, but develop a community that's good for the community, good for the residents, and lasts for a long, sustainable period of time. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Harborview. So that's the name we came up with. I think it speaks to the location and the history of the town. This is an image of the corner of Main Street to the right and Old Colony, which you can't see to the left. So as you all know, it's the former TD Bank site and building. We received approval, as Rob described, for 120 units of mixed income housing, 122 spaces. The building's approximately 100,000 square feet. The income bands. So Natalie, rightly pointed out, we provided some income information for the workforce at 110 to 120. But I'll walk through the income band, and I want to speak to something that she raised because I do think it's important. So in this building, we'll have a mix of income bands that range from 30% and lower, 30 to 60% AMI, which is defined as affordable. And then the workforce band. The workforce band technically is 80 to 120, so she's correct. And we will have an 80 to 120 income band. And we'll figure out, based on the market rent, where those rents will be set, because what we need to do is show a discount to market. So if the market is here, the workforce have to be a discount to that market, at least a 10% discount to market. And those rents will fall in that 80 to 120% income band for the workforce housing units. So when we showed our slides in the past, I think we just showed slides that featured the upper band, the 110, 120, just for our upper limit rent and income to show what those residents could qualify for at the high end. But I just want to be clear that the range is 80 to 120. And then we'll have a market rate component in the building as well, which is unrestricted in terms of incomes, basically what the market demands. The units will be scattered throughout the building, pro rata, so based on the percentages of those income tiers, and they'll be scattered across the front of the building, back of the building, top floor, lower level. Same finishes, same features from the deeply affordable to the market rate units. So there's no differentiation. We'll bring this building to passive house standards, which is the highest energy standard today. It exceeds LEED, which is somewhat of a dated energy standard. And as Rob described, we received our local permits and are targeting a mid to late year 2024 this year application to HLC for housing tax credits. Next slide. Again, this is just a little drill down on the income bands. So from left to right, the workforce tier, which I talked about earlier, the high end range, that high end range of 110 to 120 is 111,000 to 121,000. Those are real incomes. Those are incomes of people that could and would qualify for workforce housing. The affordable tier in the middle, we've identified is 60 to 80, but it's the bulk of the units in the building. Those ranges go from 53,000 to 70,000, and that's for a one-bedroom unit. And then the deeply affordable tier are the 30% AMI units or less, which are around $25,000, $26,000 a year. And we just provide some examples of who those residents may be. Some images of the building. Again, same view as before. Next slide. This is the front entry on Main Street. Next slide. And this is just a site plan of the building as it sits on the intersection of Main and Old Colony. As you can see, it's a little confusing, but the corner of Old Colony and Main is a 4-story building with no parking underneath it, where the white area is with the little dots. Those are columns. That's the first floor of the remainder of the building that is covered parking with 3 stories above that. And then it'll be surface parked to the left and to the right, call it that internal courtyard off of Old Colony. It's kind of a backwards L-shaped building. So, there was a lot of commentary, and as Rob said, I understand and respect this. And I want to speak a little bit to the importance of local funds and the importance of local funds in creating affordable housing. As Rob described, the costs are crazy. It's not, first of all, it's not easy to develop affordable housing anywhere. And it's very expensive to develop affordable housing, especially in Massachusetts. And Hyannis and Barnstable County and Harborview is not alone. And in order for a developer to create this type of affordable housing with this type of, this number of units and this quality. So if you really want to create some change, and if you really want to create a big impact in terms of affordable housing, these are the type of developments that are going to make that, I think, positive impact. And these 2 developments were created by Wynn in the last 3 to 4 years. The top image is of a community in Brighton on the Brighton Marine campus. They're a veterans specific service provider. They have a hospital on their site, and they wanted to create mixed income housing, very similar to Harborview, market, workforce, and affordable for veterans and younger veterans returning from the more recent wars that want to live in the Boston area and start families. And they committed to put out an RFP. They wanted to bring in a seasoned developer. They partnered with Wynn, and we developed Brighton Marine, which is 100 units, veterans focused, same mix of incomes as I described at Harborview. And the project received over $4 million in local funds. And that's what was needed and required to develop this type of community. The image on the bottom is in Quincy. It's called the Watson, very similar, a little bit larger, 140 units. And again, the city wanted mixed income housing, and the city put forth a pilot agreement, a real estate tax pilot agreement, and soft funds similar to affordable housing trust funds of $3.8 million to complete that building. So I just wanted to make the point that this is not unique. This is what it takes to build a building at almost $700,000 a unit of costs and provide those restrictions in terms of rents and incomes. We're building the same building as a market rate developer would build, but we're not generating the NOI and we're not having the ability to generate enough supportable debt to do these type of developments without that infusion of funds from the trust, like in Hyannis. So I just wanted to point that out and make that clear. Next slide, please. So Rob and I spoke about this earlier, and I don't know if this is the place for it, but I think it was worth it to raise in terms of deed restriction units in perpetuity. So the WIN team has asked for $2 million of affordable housing trust funds for this development. And our understanding is that there's a 12 unit or 10% requirement of inclusionary that we will fill at 60% AMI down from 65%. That comes up with if you look at the math of what those units are worth in terms of per unit costs, we thought those would factor in at about $50,000 a unit, which is less than the 74 currently published. Then you have remaining $1.4 million of trust funds that we have requested, and using your new income limits or the income limits that you are thinking about discussing at $200,000 per unit, that would equate to 7 units. So I'm not sure if I made that clear, but we came up with 12 units in perpetuity at 60 and 7 units in perpetuity at 80 for a total of 19 units deed restricted. And that math works to support the $2 million in affordable housing trust funds. Rob, did I say that correctly?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah. And again, I think, I know that the discussion of moving, to the 200,000 was, reflective and of the, the numbers that you've been hearing, that costs on per unit basis exceeding $600,000. In fact, as you can see from WIN, that this is even beyond the midpoint of that, or the mid sixes, going to the high sixes at 665 plus a unit.
So look, I didn't want to take all your time this morning. That's our presentation. We obviously are here to answer questions, myself, obviously, and Rob, and I think, Brandon, I think that's the last slide, correct? Yeah. There we go. Thank you. So that's the last slide. So thank you very much. So really appreciate your time this morning. Appreciate your support for this project. This has been a good process for the WIN team and the WIN folks, and we're really happy and honored to be talking to you about this project in your town. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we able to unshare the screen? There we go. Back to see everyone. Okay, is that everyone from the proponent that wanted to speak this morning? We do appreciate the overview, and I particularly appreciate the last slide with a little bit of specificity on exactly what this $2 million ask before the trust today is. So
okay,
that is helpful.
Good.
With that, I'd like to open it up to members of the trust for discussion or questions of the proponent. Laura, please.
So first of all, I'm thrilled to see that this has morphed, or maybe was always going to be an affordable housing project primarily. It certainly addresses the needs that we have in the town. I do have some questions and comments that are, a little bit more in detail. I was surprised to see the late notice today that rather than the 45 units that I expected that was in the original proposal, that the $2 million was going to cover, that it had been reduced and how it was reduced. The difference between the 65%, the inclusionary units, the difference between 65% and 60% is, minor. It also is necessary for your tax credit limits. So therefore, you're just, in my mind, it's coordinating the tax credit and other fund limitations with what the inclusionary is. As I hope you have been told, that the trust does not fund inclusionary units. So you're asked from going from 65 to 60 didn't, I'm not supportive of. I'm supportive of it going to 60. I think we need to go to 60 when it was imposed, for the inclusionary zoning. 65 was high home, and so it had a relevant coordination with other funds. It doesn't anymore because high home is 60. So that's one piece. And then the other 200,000, as I hope you know, that was not voted at $200,000 a unit. It's still in discussion. And I believe at the last meeting, we agreed to look at 150,000 up to 200,000, depending on level of affordability and other factors. So the 200 is not within our NOFIS right now. As was mentioned, I did notice that you threw $3 million off between sources and uses in the application. So you have $3 million. Your addition is wrong on the sources. So that is, maybe there's a line missing. I think I'll stop with that for right now. Oh, I guess the other is your timing. You said you were hoping to get into the mini round. Does that mean that you applied for this project already in winter of 23, since typically they're the only ones that can be invited to the mini round? Just wondering where and where the priority is and wins other projects, since you can only have 2 in the round at a time. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for your comments. Would you perhaps like to respond to the tail end of that? That seemed like a pretty straightforward question.
Sure, I'm happy to do anything that's helpful. So you definitely know your stuff. So there's a round in the winter, and then they typically receive a bunch of applications, and then those awards that aren't funded in the winter round shift to a mini. So we worked with HLC to ask for some type of placeholder designation for the winter round. I don't know that we'll be able to be in the mini, but what we were told is that there will be a new production round in mid to late year 2024. And that's the round that we are targeting for. If we're unable to get in that mid to late year round this year, we'll be applying in February of 25 in the standard round.
Thank you. All right, do we have Wendy, please?
Thanks. It's really good to see the deep details of this project, and I think you guys have done a lot of work for our community so far, so I appreciate that. And I'm not the housing expert, just saying, but from my deep background in economic development, housing has become a huge economic development issue for our community. So I guess my question is relative to the application process of finding tenants. Is there, and I apologize if there's a law that surrounds this, but is there, that I don't know, but is there a local applicant preference that you can institute, or have you done that in other communities?
Yeah, I assume you want me to respond?
Please do.
Mr. Chair, yeah. So we have done local preferences. It's something that we've done in the past. They would obviously have to qualify in terms of income standards, right? So whatever the income tiers are. But you're right, there are some pretty specific rules and regs around lotteries that go into affordable housing, and we can do local preferences for local housing as well, and be happy to speak with you about that. So I think that's important.
That's great. I have a couple of follow-up questions, Mr. Chair.
Please do.
In terms of the local jobs created around this, how does that work? Do you hire local construction people, debris removal people, and is there a job creation number that you attach to these projects?
So oftentimes we have total job creation numbers, which we can provide if that's helpful, on a project of this size. And then within our contract, so most of the work that's done is done through the general contractor level, as you described. We're not the general contractor. We would hire a general contractor that would be Massachusetts based, preferably, South Shore, closer to the Cape. And then we would put some provisions in the contract, not just for local, but for M and WB, so minority and women-owned businesses. And we would have certain percentage goals for MBEs, WBEs, and local hiring initiatives that our contractor would be required to fulfill through their subcontractor hiring.
Okay, that's great. Another quick question, and maybe this is for Mr. Milne. You don't have to give me an answer right now, but I am curious to know what kind of tax revenue this building would generate for the town. But again, I'm happy to wait for that answer.
Mark, are you prepared to answer that, or is that something you'd like to jump, perhaps put
Yeah,
off?
that would, well, I couldn't give you an exact
Yeah.
number on that right now. Of course, that's speculative. The building would have to be constructed, and then, we would have to evaluate for assessment purposes upon its completion. So it's very premature.
Okay. Another question in terms of site control, and I'm just keying off of the questions that we have on our own analysis for presentations. But you said site control, you have the purchase and sale as contingent upon funding or permit. You have a lot of your permits in hand. Can you tell us how close you are to having site control?
So we're very close. We're actually in the process of purchasing the property right now.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So to your question, we had an option with the seller that we had during the development period, and we're in the process of owning the property.
Okay, that's great. Is there somewhere in your document, had kind of a crazy week. Is there somewhere in the document where you display the range of rents that will be charged?
There might be, I don't know if it's in the application. I can provide that to you. I can speak to them, whatever you think is helpful.
Yeah, I will look at the exhibit that it references. It's not
Okay.
actually in the application project, and I guess my last question
But
is.
I'm happy to follow up with the board with that matrix if that's
Okay.
helpful. Yeah.
I think that would be helpful, just for
Yeah.
general.
But I believe that's exhibit 8B.
8B, you're right. I'll dig that up. You don't have to follow up that. In terms of, we know that the values of properties have just risen quickly, enormously, and that the cost to construct is just rising. So, the cost of labor is going up, which actually is a good thing. People are making more money. However, it just adds to how expensive these kinds of projects become. Have you, and if you're scheduled to complete, in 2 years, and you feel comfortable that these numbers are going to hold for 2 years?
No, I'm being sarcastic. You're smart in asking these questions, and this is the cycle for housing, and this is why it's so difficult. We make an application. I'll pick a timeline. We make an application in January. We hope to get an award in July or August, and then we close 6 to 9 months later. So you're right. There's a 1 to 2 year period of time where we make our application and we provide our numbers and we close on our financing and start construction. What we try to do, and what we've done very well, is put in a set of numbers that try to anticipate that escalation, that period of time between making the application and closing. And the contractors we work with and the design folks we work with understand that's how this cycle works. And it's not unlike the real world. The real world changes. Interest rates go up or down, cap rates go up or down, construction costs change. So there's always that fluid, how do we deal with it? And we try to deal with it with historic costs that we've built in the past. We have a big portfolio that we can pull from, and working with contractors that can help us anticipate, no crystal ball, but that can help us anticipate what those costs will be down the road based on their relationships with their subs and the timing associated with the project. So what we never want to do is put in an application that doesn't anticipate that escalation, because then the agency would say, guys, you didn't think through this, and it's not a real application. But the level of drawings, and this is another point, and I'll be quick, the level of drawings that we put forth for an application are basically permit drawings. They're full construction drawings. So the state understands that they need certainty, and they push the developers to create plans and drawings that are priceable and permittable, so we really know what the building is going to be when we close on our financing.
So just a closing comment, Mr. Chair. I think I appreciate that, because I think that there's been community comment that we need to help fund other projects. And quite honestly, we've had other projects come to us, and because it just takes time to do this. You know, housing is not going to get fixed overnight. Part of it's because it just takes so long, but people have not factored that into their projections, and then they run out of time, or they run out of money, and then they come back looking for more money. And I think that that's been frustrating for us, because we want to do deals, they're just not penciling out. So I appreciate your expertise. I mean, I looked at those drawings and I thought, oh my gosh, what they've already invested in these drawings is significant. And I would hope that you would have that anticipated projected cost impact. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for that.
Great.
Thank you, Wendy, for all the questions and comments. Other trust board members have comments, questions? Mr. Milne.
Yes, I want to start off by just thanking Wind Development for investing in the town of Barnstable. You're certainly a national leader in this area, and your reputation precedes itself. And we're very fortunate to have you, looking at our community to make this type of investment. And thank you very much for that. So my question is if we don't provide this subsidy, what's the impact to our community on this project without the $2 million? And is that $2 million perhaps one of the missing funding sources on your application here?
So I don't think it is. I think I'll look at the sources and uses, and I don't know if we just blended something together, but I don't think we excluded this source in the application, but I'll confirm that. So I'm trying to think how to answer this question. So the state, it used to be DHCD, it's now HLC, they've changed their name, that allocates all of the financing for affordable housing. They have these rounds that occur annually. Now they're twice a year because of the push for production. The sources are very, very competitive. So they may receive 50 applications in a round, and they can only fund 40% of those applications. So it's very competitive. The resources are allocated to applicants based on the type of housing, where it's located, and they have to meet certain criteria that the agency wishes to put forth in terms of number of units, bedroom sizes, municipalities that have low, SHI, unit counts, locations that are close to transportation, jobs, things like that. One of the things that the agency really cares about is the ability for the community to provide matching funds. And that could be in the form of a tax abatement, that could be in the form of affordable housing trust funds, that could be in the form of home funds, reduced building permit fees. We can put together a list of those resources. And it really is a requirement of the agency to provide those matching funds. And I think that the state understands that Barnstable is different than Cambridge, is different than Lowell, is different than Brighton in terms of resources, but they really are looking for those matching funds as commitment from the municipality or the town to show that this is a priority for them as well as the state. So it's, I think, very important. And it also is a source of financing for these type of developments. So, and the less we get from towns, municipalities, and from the state, I would say that impacts the type of development we want to develop. That could impact finishes, that could impact how the building looks, that could impact, you know, what it looks like in the future. So.
Okay, thank you. So funding from this board, funding this request would, in your opinion, would strengthen your application for those subsidies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Mark.
One follow-up question. You mentioned SHI inventory. How many of the units in this project will count towards the SHI?
So 100%. So my understanding, I'm not an attorney. Rob is, I don't even play one on TV. Rob is our counsel, but my understanding is as long as 25% of the units are at 80% AMI or less, 100% of the units, 120 units count towards your SHI.
Thank you.
If I might, Attorney Galvin, does that seem to hold water?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I appreciate that. Laura?
That has a caveat. This would be, I guess it depends on which subsidizing agency you would be using to, you know, to have them count. If it's LAU, which the 80% units would be, then they have to be in perpetuity, which was a comment I was going to make, that I lived through expiring uses. 30 years comes really quick. And I think all the affordable units that you have designated should be in perpetuity. Whether they're ones that we're funding or not, the specter of having these units go to market after the 30 years that is required under tax credits is just, I don't think what the town wants to see, or what I want to see anyway. Speak for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any other questions or comments? I know myself personally, I appreciated the last slide and a bit of clarification today on sort of what's the benefit of the bargain, so to speak. I mean, clearly your proposal is sophisticated. You guys do an outstanding job of finding subsidies wherever subsidies can be found, and bringing those to bear on affordable housing is clearly something that our community needs, and we appreciate that. When it comes down to this trust, typically we have struggled with, you know, per unit amount that we contribute towards affordable housing. We've done a pretty good job, I believe, in taking in each project individually and really taking a hard look and working with the proponent to come to some agreement on what's reasonable. In the past, we've kind of been more in the $100,000 range per unit. I know there was much discussion, and our next NOFA is probably going to be modified upwards somewhat in that regard. But when you quickly jump to the 200, that it was pretty clear that would be when we evaluated the very top and extraordinary circumstance. I think we were landing more on the between 75 and 150. I know that may not pencil out, but I think further discussions, in my opinion, may want to be had, both on that, and to Laura's point, the reduction from 65 down to 60 at $50,000 per unit, when literally we were thinking new units worth of $75,000. I think that 50,000 for those each probably is not something that, at least to date, that we would entertain. That's not to say that a lower amount or more units aren't something that we would consider. Clearly, we want to, in our role, increase the affordability, whether that's lowering AMI on a project across the various bands, or increasing the number of affordable units. So I personally look forward to having further discussions, you know, on what perhaps we can do to best hone in on the $2 million ask of this trust. I hear what you said, and I appreciate that in response to Mr. Millen's question about the support and how that will help you garner the other funds. But in looking through it, it did not sound to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that this particular ask is a deal breaker with respect to the project moving forward. It's more of a, you know, how can we help this project even benefit the community more? Am I?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Laura, please.
and Mr. Chair, I didn't mean to I didn't mean to say that the 200 was a done deal or book. So I apologize if it came across that way, and totally understand what you're saying. So
Yeah, absolutely. And typically these are not one and done discussions when projects of this magnitude come before us, and we're very grateful to be having the discussions.
Thank you.
But we are very cautious in the use of our limited CPC funds, as many of the members of public commented on today.
Understood.
Laura?
Just a couple of remaining things that were on my list. Have you done a market study? It's probably early, but
So we've done an internal market study with the management company where we've looked at some data through CoStar and just doing, tours of what's available. We'll do a call it a full-blown market study as the deal moves forward.
okay. I was asking because of the workforce housing rent and income limits. There's the use of them around the Cape has been that they've kind of settled on 90%, is 10% below market.
Right.
And so the rents and incomes have to be there. So I just wanted to point that out, and it may change with, timing. That's a, spot in time. So.
Absolutely.
And then in your application, you have your project-based vouchers at 60%. I assume that's a mistake, that they should be at 30%.
So some of the vouchers, depending on which ones we use, have limits tied to FMRs. So
Yeah.
a little bit different terminology. I think you understand because you seem like you're smart on this stuff. Some are at 100% FMR, some are at 110%
Yeah.
FMR. And those FMRs oftentimes equate to those 60% rents. So sometimes we can couple them with the 60s. More oftentimes we couple them with the 30s.
Okay, so that's the rent levels, but not the income levels.
That's right. That's the rent levels. Yeah.
Because I know for tax credits, you have to do so many 30% or under 50% anyway.
Yep.
Okay. I do want to just say that I definitely agree with the the importance of having local contributions to these projects. They move faster. They gather more resources and subsidies to make them work. And, you really don't, you get a head start with them. I also would point out that the Barnstable County, Barnstable is part of a home consortium. And if you get, you have to get Barnstable County home consortium money in order to get state home money. So if that was, I know you kind of just put everything in the mixing bowl when you apply, and HLC decides where the source is, but that's a source, it's $350,000, but it's $350,000. So I would suggest that if it's not on your list, that you put it on your list.
That's great. Will do. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other trust board members have questions, comments, items for future follow-up? All right. Well, with that, I really want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming and giving us the overview, and hopefully you've got some items to think on, and certainly
Got a whole list.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll go through and hopefully take a hard look at your proposal and the answers to your questions, and start looking at our evaluation criteria. And we look forward to having you back in the near future.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to being back.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move on to item number 2 of today's Affordable Housing Trust agenda, which is the continued discussion of potential revisions to our Notice of Funding Availability, NOFA. Trust Administrator Douglas and Planning and Development Director Jenkins will lead the discussion.
Okay, so I guess first of all, you do have this in the packet. So we have we've highlighted those things that came from the last meeting, and I guess we can go through them one by one if people desire. I don't know, Elizabeth, did you have a preference as to way to presenting, or?
We can go through them. Hopefully you've had, board members have had a chance to take a look. We tried, I know I rewatched the video of the discussion last time several times and tried to capture the comments, and intention of the trust. Particularly focused at least on some cleanup relative to our income definitions, and then focusing mainly on the evaluation criteria and funding levels for development activities. My takeaway last time was that, you know, there, as was previously articulated by Assistant Town Manager Clyburn, that the trust was willing to consider applications at a base level and then increase the amount of funding per unit based on their ability to, a project's ability to adhere to the evaluation criteria. So a lot of the content that I think we discussed was in here, but Jillian and I sat down, attempted to essentially rearrange the evaluation criteria so it reflected the priorities for the trust, particularly, and as we just noted, high priorities as discussed last time were projects that leveraged other funding sources, projects that have a greater percentage of overall units designated affordable, and projects that have a deeper level of affordability. So we pulled those out of additional criteria, moved them up into priorities, and again, hopefully we're able to articulate that those priorities of the board, but I'm happy to take further comments.
Trust board members have comment? Laura, please.
Sorry, in the scale of funding, I think unless I'm remembering incorrectly, we had a scale from 75 to 150. In this revised, it goes up to 200, and that's probably where, I don't know when it's seen this, but, and maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure we had 75 to 150 per unit. And
I believe that's what I had. I thought, particularly in the minutes, which I know is the next minute item to approve, but I thought I read in there that that's what we were trying to target, was 75 to 150, with the ability to go to 200 with additional, using our criteria. And if you got so many extra points for those extraordinary circumstances, that we would look, again, keeping ourselves flexible to be able to evaluate each project independently on its own merits.
Yeah, but yeah, and also being cognizant that whatever we put as a top number is what's going to be asked for the most part. So
I think we've seen that, yes.
Yeah, we have to be clear that, it goes higher based on extraordinary circumstances, or, whatever, looking at the bonus points of the, priorities that we have.
Exactly. Wendy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, what Laura said. I think we have to be really clear that we will go higher. I mean, I don't see prices coming down anytime soon, but I think they have to get all those bonus points, and maybe we revisit some of those bonus points, which are questions that, we basically just had for when, especially around sustainability or green energy practices, that kind of thing. I think they've got to hit all those marks to get to that top dollar. I think that's, Laura's right. If someone's going to say, "Oh, there's money available," and I'm going to ask for the top dollar, but they've got to prove that they've earned that. Earned it. They can meet the qualifications that we as the community want and need.
Yes. Jillian?
Through the chair, then, is it your feeling that as worded, it needs to include itemizing those bonus points, or do you feel it's just reference? Because we did state that you could go up to 200,000 based on bonus points. And I guess maybe it wasn't spelled out as clearly as you'd like. I don't know.
I don't see
don't personally think that we need to be prescriptive in that manner. I think that we should be able to evaluate depending on each project. Laura?
I would prefer it to say that it would go to 150, which is what we talked about last time, and then saying that, you know, we reserve the right, or whatever we wanted to call it, to increase that, based on, you know, extraordinary circumstances or something like that.
Yeah, just the way we have it in the application,
Right.
you know,
Okay, and bottom, yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading it now. I
bonus points. Let's put the words bonus points in there. I mean, it's kind of clear. I don't see the words bonus points. I'm sorry, Laura, if you see
That
that.
was my point, that we didn't use that
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
We could.
Yeah, but we don't have to list what the bonus points are.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's listed in the evaluation worksheet that we have.
Right.
That's where it's implemented, so,
And the application.
yes.
Okay, I think I'm hearing better. And I think that the inclusion of that term bonus points with that increase the eligibility potentially up to 200,000, or do you not want the number there? Or because if you were going to say that your standard points would go, you would go up to 150,000 per unit as a cap, then your bonus points would be the only thing that could potentially get you higher. And if you put the number of 200,000 in there, I get your point that people tend to target on numbers. But
Well, where else do we put the number?
you simply wouldn't. In other words, you wouldn't have a cap if that were the case. And I guess I'm suggesting you probably do want to.
That's a good question, Jillian. I'd be interested in the other board members' thoughts. Do we want to include that number of 200? We have not done that in the past. Question mark, Mark Mill?
Yeah, I would not want to include it because we tend to, you know, see applicants come forward and ask for whatever number we put in there. So, and if we don't put it in there, at least we provide ourselves with some flexibility.
I see nods. Laura, are you concurrent on that?
Yeah, I agree. If we don't, you know, it just to say that we have the, you know, ability to increase, and then we can, you know, we
Yeah.
can debate it at the time based on the criteria.
I agree.
But we
I
don't
like
have a
the,
number that they're gonna plug
I
in.
like advertising the 775 to 150,
Yeah.
and the 200 is artificial anyways. I mean, obviously we have the authority project by project to do what's right, but
Right.
I kind of concur that 200. I mean, clearly we saw just from having this discussion at our last meeting that a proponent came in asking for 200. So
That wasn't voted on.
it is not illogical to think whatever is potentially advertised is going to be asked for.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, did you have your hand up?
I did want to add as well, and I apologize because I don't think it came through clearly in the markup, but we did try to strengthen the preface to the funding levels by saying that the funding levels in this no fire meant to guide applicants in formulating requests to the trust board, but award amounts are determined at the discretion of the trust board based on a project's adherence to established priorities and criteria. So for some of the discussion at the last meeting, we did strengthen that language in the each eligible activities section. I also wanted to note, because it did not come through on the strike through, but under development, in the markup, under development activities, we did add a paragraph that says units required to be deed restricted affordable by Chapter 9 will not be considered eligible for funding unless they are more deeply affordable than required. So that's explicitly stated here.
Right. Okay. The question I had, and I see it was covered, the maximum funding of project came up, but I know some of our comments that we received for this particular applicant referenced the 1 million, and I know we have not held to that. I think that Our original NOFA put that out there as a suggestion, but clearly projects with more units or higher affordability, we have exceeded that. I see that the suggestion here is to change the number to 200. I don't know if that's prudent, not prudent, but I'd like to have some discussion on that number as well.
200 or 2 million?
I'm sorry, 2 million. It was 1 million. Laura?
I would agree to going to 2 million based, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to do 2 million for 10 units, you
Right.
know, kind of thing. But I think again, it's at our discretion, and for projects, if it's going to be a larger project, the $2 million, it has to make an impact. It has to be impactful, or we
Absolutely.
wouldn't do it. So.
Yeah. Is there a thought that the 1 million, the cap on 1 million is perhaps limiting applicants at this point? I apologize. I was in another meeting during the last meeting. So I know this was discussed robustly, but just for my clarification.
I don't think it has, because I think people have not ignored it, but, you know, assume that we would take them, you know, one at a time,
Yeah.
and that we're using it as a guide.
Okay. Do we have consensus with the other board members that changing that number from 1 to 2 million is okay? All right.
Yes.
Are there
Yes.
other items on the updated NOFA or any other guidance that we want to give Jillian as we get to a final draft on this? Seeing none. Jillian, do you have what you need, you think, to get us to
I
a
think I do.
final
I'm
draft?
sorry it's taking so long, but
Yeah.
the
Well,
wording
then-
is important, but I think we can bring something back that adds back the reference to bonus points and the discretion, the cap being listed as a guidance, not a solid.
Okay. Is it the board's pleasure to vote this today with those changes, or would you prefer Jillian to make the changes and come back to the next our next meeting?
Maybe because we asked for wording to be inserted, that we could vote it at the next meeting, or we'll just word the motion very carefully.
Okay. Jillian, Elizabeth, is there any unintended negative consequences by not voting this today? Can we wait for the next meeting to get this vote?
I don't feel it's, well, you do have potential applicants that are obviously looking to have those
Right.
those numbers firmed. And I mean, we can provide from staff guidance as they submit their applications.
All right, next meeting it
does need
is.
to be voted.
Any other discussion on this particular item, or we'll move right along? Okay, thank you very much, Jillian and Elizabeth. Item number 3 on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 5th meeting of the trust. Do I have any discussion or comments on the meeting minutes? We've all received.
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
so I have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes of 5 April. Laura Schufelt.
Gonna abstain because I didn't have time to read them.
That's problematic. I only say that because Mark's not here and
Oh,
I was
wait.
in another meeting last meeting, so we're not gonna have 3.
I'll
Um,
abstain.
Okay,
Okay, you wanna,
sorry.
that's okay. No, that's where we're living. So Jillian, please plan to bring those minutes back at our next meeting for approval.
Very good. Thank you.
Moving right along. Item number 4, updates from staff on pending applications. We've got Brat LLC at 199 Barnstable Road.
And I added that just to let you know that we have had inquiry and we do anticipate, we've received a draft application and I'm in the process of vetting that and going through it to make sure it's complete. But it has not, I haven't cleared it for your full approval. The applicant is looking for a meeting this month. If we can possibly have a second meeting this month, that would expedite a couple of things that we have pending. And that gets difficult because I know as we head into June and July, Chairman Els had said that he may or may not be available. So quorums will be difficult. And
Yeah,
then
I'll bring that up item later.
Very good. And then just updates. I have been in touch with David Kaplan of Forward 2. And Bob Galvin and I are working on finalizing those their grant agreement. So they're in the process now of their funding is still pending. But they are needing our clarification that our grant agreement has been approved. So that, again, as we noted in previous discussion, the local commitments, in this case, a regional project in the town of Dennis, their application is stronger when it shows all of their sources of funding. So that is something we're working to finalize, and again, hopefully this month. So again, a meeting in May would be helpful if we could finalize that. The 50 Yarmouth Road, that's Linnell Landing Project. Again, the grant agreement has not been finalized, and we have not executed the mortgage on that. So again, Bob and I will be working to finalize that. The applicant has started some local site work, as people may have noticed, so that is progressing, and they are seeking full execution of documents so that they can proceed with their funding. And let's see, lastly, there is Bread and Roses, which was a pre-development application. That's $50,000 that the applicant has asked for an amendment to their grant agreement to allow him to submit incremental bills for payment. Hopefully that will be fine, but again, I'm consulting with Bob on that just to make sure that we have documents that reflect if that's agreeable.
Excellent. Thank you
That's
for the
it for the
updates,
3
Jillian.
pending applications or
Thank you.
projects.
Do we have any questions for Jillian? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right along. Item number 5, matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Do we have any said matters in front of us? Okay. Item number 6, topics for future meetings and agenda in May, June, July, and August. I know we have a number. Wendy.
It doesn't have a time restriction on it, but I would like to learn more about Placemate that was suggested by one of the public commenters that was present today. Placemate is a program that the town of Provincetown is using. It'd just be good to know a little bit more about that.
Okay.
If through the chair,
Yes.
if that's something that I can, sometimes that is I believe it's a program that has an application with it that people can log on and see how that works. I can connect people with the link. And if you do want a demonstration of that, I believe, and I see Mr. Schwab has his hand up, but that the point was that that can either be demonstrated individually, or I suppose it could be demonstrated to the board.
Absolutely. And having had that request, I will suggest moving back through Jillian offline to Mr. Schwab and others to set that up, if that's appropriate, just because we have passed public comment at this point. All right. Anything else from trust members that you'd like to see in upcoming agendas? I would like to get to the schedule of our agendas. Fridays have become a bit problematic in the short term. I'd like to hear from everyone if there's any reason that we could not change, particularly if we have more applications and we're going to be meeting more frequently, which is a great thing. But is there any days of the week potentially that would not work for either Wendy or Laura?
Thursdays
are no good. Okay, Laura.
I have to be in Boston every Tuesday, so Tuesdays are out.
Okay, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. That leaves Wednesdays. Wednesday mornings are a non-starter for us. Would you concur with that, Mark? Perhaps I don't know what's the board's pleasure with their Mondays. Mondays are typically Mondays. I don't know if you prefer a Wednesday afternoon or a Monday afternoon meeting. Is there any
I can
preference?
I can do Monday mornings. I can do Wednesday afternoons.
Me too.
Mark, do you have a preference? I'll take that as a no.
There we
Mark
go.
Melton's
We can
always
do
here.
either one. Sorry, Mike.
He's always here and ready to work. So, okay. Well, I would like to propose then perhaps that we start rescheduling these for Wednesday afternoons. Does 1400 work for folk or 1300? I'm sorry, does 1 PM work for folks? Yes?
1400 would be better.
Yeah, I think.
Andy, we have the standing meeting on Wednesday at
I
1.
know we do. Let me back that up. Could I propose perhaps 2 o'clock Monday afternoons? Wednesdays are highly problematic.
Are you saying Monday now? Say that again.
I'm saying Monday. I apologize.
Wednesday at 2?
No,
Monday.
I'm saying, could we look at Mondays and perhaps a good time on Monday afternoons to move these meetings to?
Yeah, Monday at 2 works for me.
Okay.
Yes,
Works for me.
Maybe.
Mhm.
Let's make it so, Jillian, 1400 Monday afternoons. And you'll reach out and
Absolutely.
to us individually to schedule those. I appreciate your flexibility on that.
Thank
That's
you.
in May? Beginning in
I'm sorry.
May? Starting in May?
Our next meeting.
Meeting.
Well, so currently, sorry, through the chair, so you're currently scheduled for Friday, June 7th, but that I think is going to change now if you.
Correct.
Change.
And
And
it
then the
sounded like
question-
you may have an appetite from some of our applicants to have another meeting in May. So I would entertain from the board members, is there a Monday at 2 o'clock in May, knowing that we're already at the beginning of May, that might work for everyone?
13th is the only one I could do. in
Me
May.
too.
Well, that makes it fairly easy, doesn't it? Mark, does that work for you?
Yes, 13th works for
Okay.
me.
All right, let's try for that, Jillian. Does that meet our posting requirements? Knowing it's
Yes.
already the 3rd of May? Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's tentatively schedule that for 1400 on the 13th of May. That's exciting. Anything else in regards to future meetings that we need to discuss today?
Which is the meeting in June? Is it the 3rd or the 10th? The 3rd?
I
We're talking
defer.
about May.
The 3rd, the first Monday.
The first Monday? Okay.
Okay. Are we all clear? Jillian will deconflict with all of us offline after this meeting. I did want to take a moment to thank all of the public that came out. This is by far the best attended trust meeting we've had, and your input is very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you.
everyone.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to make an announcement for the board and anyone else who is listening that MHP's 2-day Housing Institute is June 12th and 13th in Worcester this year. It is a training for advocates, staff, elected officials. The full agenda came out yesterday. If you are a board member or a volunteer, you can ask for a scholarship and it would be free. And parking is free, or we take care of it. So MHP, I have my MHP hat on. So I would encourage folks to come and learn about affordable housing.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Any other public service announcements we'd like to make? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
yes.
Wendy Northcross,
Yes.
Mark Milne,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn, yes. Thank you all again. Have a fantastic weekend.